On Tuesday, there was a gun control rally in New Hampshire held by Michael Bloomberg's Mayors Against Illegal Guns group. There, an organizer read names of people killed by guns since Sandy Hook. One of the names, a worthless dirtbag that I won't name. Yeah, he was a victim. Reporter Tim Buckland caught it, which forced Bloomberg's office to apologize. So how did that name get there? Well, organizers pulled a list from Slate.com called, quote, a pure accounting of deaths, regardless of the circumstances. It's not a bad description for relativism's effect throughout history. So what does it tell you about a group that includes a murderous terrorist alongside kids? Well, it shows you they'll do anything to score political points. It also shows you how the media and government are hand in hand in shaping their own emotional political narrative, even if their strategy is stomach-turning, which is why I actually cheer the anti-gun group for using the terrorist's real name, because it pulls back the curtain, showing you how this relativism fuels anti-gun rhetoric. And it makes you wonder, how many gun stats are used to include perpetrators and criminals as victims? By publicly naming the bomber, this sleazy tactic of blending good and bad shootings has now been exposed. So we should be thankful, because when you're playing politics, facts are secondary to facade. And toxic ideology refuses to distinguish between a heroic cop and a murderer. They're just two guys holding guns. It's grotesque, but it's better you see it than let it sneak past in the dead of night. Andrea, doesn't this kind of it makes you wonder, because you always wondered about the gun stats, how they do that, and this is what they do. They group them together. Yep. And so it's just the evil gun and all of these victims when there are people involved that are bad guys that got shot.
Yeah. Well, of course they're not going to pick them apart, because they want to make this really strong argument that guns are bad. By the way, you said before you hate lists. I can see why. Yeah. But this group actually should be called Mayors Against Guns. Mm-hmm. Not illegal guns.
Right.
Why can't it, right? Why can't they just, that's what it should be called. And this is really embarrassing for Mayor Bloomberg. I mean, as you said, if you read the list that was on, I guess it was Slate.com, it specifies that this has no consequence. They don't specify who died from what. And it's really embarrassing for Bloomberg, because this is a guy who has an army of people working for him, like 3,000 people, and no one caught that. But, you know, it's really upsetting, though, that this group also can't reach out to groups like the NRA, who's also against gun violence.
Right.
There's so many unlikely alliances. But, of course, Greg, just like picking out the stats that don't work, why would they do that? Then they won't get on the front page. Then it's not a good enough argument for them. So, you know, they miss a lot of opportunities, I think, with this, just fudging the numbers.
That wasn't a mistake. I mean, it's what the left does. It's what The Daily Show does, what MSNBC does when they selective edit stuff. They put it in there. It makes their point seem more frothy, more relevant, and they go, hopefully no one catches this. Once in a while, someone will read through the long, long list and say, what do you mean? Tsarnaev, he's a victim of guns? Yeah. No, he's not. And then we hear about it and we shed some light on it.
They apologize. This was a terrible mistake, no question about it. But what do you say to the people who legitimately, young kids and others who were on that list who died? You go to their funerals and say this is the left trying to make a big deal out of guns?
That's not my point.
Nobody's
the point was
well, what about you took one name out of a list of...
No, they left the name in.
I understand that, but that was one name out of a list of hundreds of names of people, some legitimately shot.
We're not talking about the list. We're talking about the fact that Tsarnaev was listed as a victim of gun violence.
The idea is to show the number of people who've been killed by guns.
Right, so, including a terrorist.
Including one terrorist, that's correct.
And maimed hundreds of people.
Yeah.
At one of the most patriotic events in America.
Yeah, and you could say that God bless guns for killing him.
But what about the people who were killed?
We are not just see. This is relativism. You're saying, oh, this guy is evil, but what about this? We're not talking. I'm focusing on evil.
One guy, one name.
The thing that amazed me is that nobody even recognized the name.
Yeah, this
nobody caught it even as they're reading it.
Yeah, it was. If it wasn't for this, what's his name, Tim Buckland. Thank you, producer in my ear, trying to make me sound smart. Tim Buckland, who would have reported it?
Well, when this story first broke, you and I both saw it on Twitter. We emailed it to each other saying, this can't possibly be true. This must be a joke. You thought it was a ruse. Then you track it down, and it didn't get much attention, but now it has.
It's too bad it got the kind of attention it got for all those people out there, people were on the list who died.
But this is a group that doesn't want any guns. They want Nerf bats everywhere. They want super soakers. They want water guns. Like, just admit that they don't want, they say they don't want illegal guns. They don't want any guns.
They're reading the list of dead people from guns.
If this would be like at the World Trade Center on 9/11 when they read the names of everybody to include Musawi
Right.
in the im.
The 19.
It's the equivalent of that.
terrorists.
And then it's our fault because we're not sympathizing for the people who died in a plane crash?
Well, I think if you listed somebody at the World Trade Center who turned out to be a terrorist or somebody else, it wouldn't diminish the other 3,000 some odd who got killed.
I think this
ask the families
Really?
of the 3,000 people who were killed.
What?
They want the terrorists listed alongside
That's
them.
crazy.
Of course they don't.
Well,
That's
This
crazy.
is the same thing.
Well,
How is this not the exact same thing?
they want their names read of their families' victims.
And it insulted the families, I think. It reminds me of that. It was William F. Buckley said that it's like taking a man who pushes a woman in front of a bus and a man who pushes a woman out of the way of the bus and labeling guys who push women around. That's what they're doing.
One more analogy.
Yeah.
Nidal Hassan defending himself in the Fort Hood, that means he gets to question the victims, the people he shot.
Yeah.
Just a slap in the face.
I didn't know you
the
didn't
law.
like lists. I love lists.
Oh, no, I had the book of lists when I was younger, but then I got over
I
it.
love lists.
Do you like?
I'm going to make one of why I don't like you in the commercial break.
Thank you.
I have enough paper.
I don't think she does. What's the first one on the list?
That you
Wow.
like
Don't like
lists?
lists.
You like lists.